Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Good day to you, my good friends, and welcome to the program Agriculture on the Move. My name is Phillip Sydney. With me today is Mr. Kemuel Jn Baptiste, who is the Chief Extension Officer in charge of the Extension and Advisory Services Unit in the Department of Agriculture. And today we're talking about crop scheduling, production of vegetable crops on the market. Welcome to the program, sir.
Good morning. Good day to everyone, and thank you for having me here today. I'm really happy to be on this program and to talk about production and marketing of fresh agricultural produce, a really critical area for our work in the Ministry of Agriculture.
Before we delve into this, just tell again St. Lucians the objective or the MO of the Extension Advisory Services Unit.
The Extension Advisory Services Unit exists within the ministry to provide technical services support to farmers. So we provide advisories on crop production. Specifically, my unit is focused on fruits, vegetables, and food crops. We also have extension services provided by our livestock division. We look at livestock, including poultry and so on. We also have some officers who provide advisories on engineering services. So these guys would be focused on drainage works and so on. We also have persons who provide plant protection services. This is also an extension service that looks at issues related to quarantine. Our focus is on promoting production of fresh agricultural produce, marketing, and that sort of stuff.
Kemuel, there seems to be a serious problem in this country, and that has been there for a while. So many formulas were put in place to mitigate.
Yes.
Production
Yes.
of fresh produce. At one time, there'll be an influx of cucumber on the market for a period of time, and then in a few days, no more. Why is that, and what can be done to mitigate against this?
All right. So before I get into the meat of it, just perhaps it would be good to step back a little bit. Our country is a very young country in terms of agricultural development. Our major marketing infrastructure is just about 50 or so years old. So we are very young in terms of agricultural trade. We come out of a history where our agriculture was plantation oriented, and those plantations had very specific markets. The coffee, the cocoa, the cane, whatever was produced had organized arrangements with the estate owners. We moved into bananas, and then we got those preferential treatment and so on. So everything that was produced in terms of bananas got sold. The boat came in and the boat took it away, whether it was from the early days of putting the bunch on your head all the way to the wharf, or the boxing plant where it was water treated, or actually boxing at the fields and so on, or more recently we're doing containerized shipment. But over time, that dynamic has changed. But we saw the changing dynamic from a while back, and we coined the phrase back then, import substitution.
Right.
Basically, since we were plantation oriented and we were monocrop oriented, that was bananas, we felt the need to ensure that our people got a balanced meal, so we started producing those vegetables in a more organized fashion.
And that's why diversification came.
That is where the diversity. What we're doing with diversifying away from bananas, we got into the root crops, the yams, the dashing, the sweet potatoes, and then more importantly the vegetables, because you wanted to ensure that you had a balanced meal. The interesting dynamic with all of this is, whereas you had organized and established trading pathways for the plantation type crops and the monocrops bananas, that did not obtain for the new crops that we were diversifying into. So we came in and we set up marketing infrastructure, most persons know as the marketing board and so on. Over time, with opening up of trade, we have new entrants, we have supermarket chains, we have hucksters, we have the hoteliers, and we have persons who operate on behalf of the hoteliers. So now you have a whole set of new players in the marketing environment. What has happened is that here is Extension. We've been promoting production. And for a very long time, our production was just like that of bananas. So you just went out and produced, and you assume that there will be a buyer. And it worked for a while. It worked for a while in terms of getting the produce out of the farm. But now with so many people coming out of bananas, going into root crops, vegetables, and so on, you have a situation where you just can't get up on a morning and decide to cultivate.
That's the point.
Right? So now we for a while now, we've been trying to advocate what we call a market-led extension services, market-led production. And I think it's something, I could see myself like a preacher preaching the same talk about God every Sunday morning. This is the same. We've been talking about this for a while, but I think I'm hoping this audience will hear this a little better this time, because the frustrations are beginning to settle in. That you are producing, and then when it's ready for harvest, then you seek to find out where it is that you're going to dispose of it. What we are advocating in today's environment is what is called market-led. If you decide to grow anything, it could be vegetables, it could be herbs, it could be fruits, roots, tubers, whatever you decide, there must be, first of all, consideration given to what you're going to do with it. There are a few options. You have the supermarket chains, you have the open street market, you have hucksters, among others. The person who decides to take money, because it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you land preparation, it's going to cost you the lease on the land, it's going to cost you irrigation, it's going to cost you inputs, seeds, fertilizers, labor, big cost. If you decide to spend money into all of this, you need to decide how you're going to get that money back. And a major consideration is, where am I going to sell this? In fact, before you decide where you're going to sell it, you should ask yourself, is this a crop that is needed? The short answer is yes. I mean, when you talk about vegetables, we are importing millions of dollars of cabbages, tomatoes, peppers, herbs, and so on. So there is an opportunity. But keep in mind that we also have traders in the environment who are bringing imports. And whereas one time it was okay to regulate imports and to say to persons you could only bring so much and so on, right now we have to take a different approach of negotiating and trying to get producers to link in with those buyers, those traders. The very same people who are importing, we need to get them to have these relationships and to agree to purchase your produce. If a farmer does not establish that relationship as to where he's going to dispose of what he's planting, and to determine what volumes that this person is going to buy. And price. And the price, well, the price is very volatile. But at least you have a commitment of a buyer to pick it up from you. It is ill-advised that you get into agricultural trade. Because what you're going to find happen, you will put money in there and you may not get the sort of returns that you want. You may be able to sell a small portion, but it will not cover the cost of your investment, and that is essentially a loss. And this is what we're here to basically preach to our audience. We are having challenges with markets, and we want to talk a little bit about that as to how we help you to move forward and to ensure that you are successful in your
But Kemuel, we have been preaching that for years.
Yes.
Eons. So why is it not impacting on the farmer? Why he's not buying that? Why he's not seeing that? Because he's doing the same thing day in and day out. He wakes up on the morning, he decides he wants to go into an acre of cabbage, or he wants to see there's a desperate need for the purchase of a fridge at home. He decides he's going to plant cabbage just for the purchasing of a fridge. Yes. Okay? And when that is done, he's finished. Yeah. You know, so when is that going to stop?
One of the things is, if you look at poultry, for example, broilers, and I'm happy that you have the photographs right here. A person who wants to go into broilers does not just get up and go into it.
Exactly.
Because there are regulations, and these are not regulations that we just want to put to regulate. These are phytosanitary considerations. You don't just get up and produce poultry, because the sanitary and phytosanitary considerations, so you need to ensure that you are tied into a processor, because we don't advocate the slaughtering of poultry in backyard and that sort of stuff.
That's right.
Because of the potential for contamination. So in that regard, persons don't just get up and start producing broilers.
That's right.
But when you look at the issue
that
of...
point, we do for our first break.
Right,
You're watching Agriculture on the Move. We do for our first break. Stay tuned.
Yon an se manya pour contrôler maladie sigatoka noue, c'est pour spray épichémique. Il pas bon pour spray durant la pluie, et ben si tan mawe, et qui ka gade akwedi la pluie peut tomber en 3 pour 4 nè di temps, parce que la pluie kay lave l'huile sprayer. Aussi, il pli meilleur pour spray durant journée, la pani trop vent, chalet, et ben il pas trop mouillé. Le soleil la trop chaud, il ka fait ces feuilles figues là, et ben banane la plié, et qui ka difficile pour ces feuilles là bien recevoir traitement qui en lait, et ben en bas feuille là. bonnet le matin, et bien tard l'après-midi, plus meilleur pour spray, parce que temps plus frais et que ces feuilles-là qu'a ouvert. Changer, là où qu'a spray, toujours mettez plus attention à sous ces jeunes feuilles-là. Pas spray ces plantes trop, et faire si oui, ou spray toute plantation en un seul coup. Plan qui manque spray, ça affecte les autres ces plants bien à l'aise.
Pour plus d'informations à sous manière pour traiter et contrôler maladie cigatocanoué à sous plantation et bien jardin ou ça téléphoner département pour ménager cigatocanoué à numéro 45 54 et bien 45 58 94 et bien email yo à bpmu@candw.lc. Commission Salak a sorti Hod Ministère de l'Agriculture ensemble avec Fonds Coopération Internationale et Développement Hod Pays République la Chine Taiwan.
Welcome back to the program. Kemuel, the inconsistencies, and that's the problem with the education of the farmer. And you're talking rightly about poultry.
So I was saying, in the case of the poultry, there are regulations that the poultry producer does not just jump on board because there are phytosanitary considerations and so on, for his own safety, by the way, because there's high risk of contamination in these environments. When you come to fruits, vegetables, and roots, that safety issue is not so prevalent.
Critical, yeah.
It's not so critical. I mean, as long as pesticide residues are respected and that sort of stuff, a person can produce. The challenge now is, now that you've produced it, and particularly if you're into commercial production of these particular items, you need to ensure that you have places to dispose of it. So here's the deal. Whereas you only have so many slaughtering facilities for livestock and poultry, there's an open street market for fresh produce. Yeah. So the producer in his mind says, you know what, if I can't sell it to an organized supermarket chain or a hotel chain, I'll just take my chances at the street market, or better yet, I'll take my pickup and drive down the road, go through the communities of wherever, and honk my horn like the bakers do and sell. And so that is one of the dynamics that has taken place, because here's the deal. Let's say you have 10,000 pounds of cabbages, for argument's sake, being hustled on the road or being huckstered on the road. Each one of those buyers represents a buyer who's not going to grab one at the supermarket or the organized markets. Now, when these areas have been taken up, then the person who buys, the organized buyers, the supermarket buyers rather, they can only sell so much, because half of the clientele have already been supplied. Yeah. Right? So
at a good price too.
At a good price. So these are some of the dynamics when it comes to persons getting on board, and then when it all falls apart, we call our district reps and get all upset that we can't sell. But you mentioned something even more critical, the issue of consistency. One of the things, well, a few things have challenged our consistency in this country. Our agriculture, in as much as we have invested heavily as a country in terms of irrigation infrastructure and trying to get water resources sorted out, our agriculture is still extensively dependent on rain. It's still what we call rain-fed. Because it is rain-fed, and along with that, all the other challenges of increased temperatures in the dry season and increased rainfall intensity in the wet season, it creates a lot of uncertainty for the farmer who is doing open field. So you basically plant these vegetables and so on, but there's no guarantee that you're going to see it all the way to the end. Right. What it does is that you made a commitment to a buyer to produce X amount at such and such a time. But guess what? Because there are so many variables in terms of what happens with that produce, there's no guarantee that you will have it ready. And because of that uncertainty that exists, we are bombarded now by imports. Because the hotelier and the other person is saying, look, my consumers are waiting for this. And I've gotten burnt in the past in terms of consistency, so I'm not taking chances. So here's what we have done as a ministry. Since back in the 80s, we introduced protected agriculture. Everybody knows it as a greenhouse. Basically, it's an umbrella for most part of it.
That's right.
Because our biggest challenge is controlling soil moisture.
That's right.
The greenhouses were brought in so that during the rainy season, starting somewhere around the end of May into June, persons could cultivate under these structures. It's not a miracle structure. It's not a hocus-pocus structure. Some people are of the opinion that you have a greenhouse and all your problems solved. Nope. Not true. In fact, it takes a lot more monitoring, a lot more resources to ensure that it performs well. So, but here's what. We have well over 300 of these structures. measuring 9.3 by 18 meters or 9.3 by 30 meters. And for many years now, the farmers produce the first few crop cycles.
And they stop.
And then they stop. Why do they stop? The plastic gets damaged, no commitment or no resources are placed aside to replace it. The other thing that persons do not pay attention to is the condition of soil. So in the soil, you have buildup of pathogens, you have buildup of bacteria and so on, and little effort is expended in trying to deal with this. So you start having crop failures. Farmer becomes disgusted and he leaves the facility. What we are saying as a ministry is, look, these facilities are there. If you work with it cyclically, during the dry season, you allow these facilities to sit idle because during the dry season, you don't need an umbrella to produce your crops. And then you could uncover it, expose it to the heat and so on, what we call solarization. When the rainy season ensues, you cover over and you begin to produce.
Or you rotate.
Or you rotate.
If you have 6 or 7.
If you have 6 or 7 of these structures, you find a creative way to rotate. I'm saying all this to say that if we do not maintain consistency in the market, the person who's buying from you, whether it is a hotelier who has, some very demanding guests who want very specific products on the plate, if they can't find it, they will find other sources.
Elsewhere, yeah.
And that other source very often represents a foreign source.
So, Kemuel, what are you saying? If, for example, the farmers with greenhouses, okay, and they carry out their practices as supposed, consistently there should be a production, year-round.
Year-round. Here's another thing that I think we've been talking about for so many years, a greenhouse cooperative or greenhouse association.
All right.
Can we not, as 300 greenhouse operators, come together in a cooperative? We meet via social media, whatever now in today's modern world, and we decide who grows what when.
Right.
So that we don't stumble over each other.
Yes.
So you say, dude, you in the uplands, you could produce during the dry season because you're in a cool environment. Those of us along the coast will stay during the rainy season. We'll decide we're going to target such and such and such crops, and we say 3 of you each month or whatever the case might be. But we need to have that conversation. We want people to come together, and we could only advocate it as a ministry.
Can there be a backward way of working it out in terms of we know exactly our import bill every year? For example, last year we brought in almost $1.6 million worth of cabbages. Okay, now can you not work that back into acreage?
Yes.
And then decide exactly the ecological areas where it can be grown well, and target the farmers and work it, at least create a dent. At least 50% of that money should stay at home.
This is what we're working on. But just to let you know, we've done that with a particular crop, ginger. We got a call from one of our buyers who said, look, guys, we noticed we're getting some ginger, but there's a window of opportunity, some 4 or 5 months where we can't find local ginger. So what we did, we looked at that period and we worked back. During that period, we went in, we got in planting material, and we gave it to the farmers. And we said, plant it. When it's ready for harvest, you'll supply us with 50% of what we gave to you as planting material, so somebody else. That has worked up to a point. The challenge is farmers don't know how to save seed.
So they don't give back.
They don't give back.
So there's no continuance.
So I'm saying this to say to you, this is what we are currently working on. The current Minister of Agriculture is very adamant that we can and we must make a dent in terms of reducing the import. And so you would have heard him say that we have identified 7 major crops that we are still importing large quantities. That would include pineapples, cabbages, tomatoes, bell peppers. We're looking at lettuce, cantaloupes, and watermelons. These crops we're looking at finding ways and farmers to get involved. So what we've done, we've started what is called a crop directory.
Okay, before you get in the crop directory, another break.
Another break. I'll tell you about this when we get back.
Yes, back soon.
Bio means life. Biodiversity is the variety of life all around us. All plants, animals, and microbes, and the places where they live. We need to protect biodiversity so that we can continue to enjoy all the resources it provides. Fresh air, clean water, food, clothing, shelter, and recreation. Biosafety ensures that we protect biodiversity against any negative impacts of GMOs while using it safely for national development.
For more information on the Biosafety Project and how you can be involved, call 451-8746 or 722-9252 Log on to lc.biosafetyclearinghouse.net or join the mailing list SLU Biosafety at govt.lc.
Kemuel, welcome back to the program, by the way. I'm so engrossed in what I'm talking about here.
Yes.
In your annual work program, the 7 crops that you mentioned, is that incorporated in that?
That will be incorporated into our, that is incorporated
and then
into our work
are you
program.
talking about the acreage that's supposed to be, you know, to be met for that year?
Yes.
And the location where it's going to be grown? All of that is
what we're doing, so we looked at these 7 crops. We took the import figures. We took the import figures from the hotels and from the supermarket chain. General import figure. Anybody who was importing this at the statistics unit of the ministry. So we took it and we saw the quantities, we saw the values.
That's right.
What we did, we took the quantities and we translated it into an acre equivalent.
That's right.
We're not looking to cut it off. We're looking to say, out of the $1.6 million imported for cabbage,
the 0.6.
Can we do the 0.6?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
This is not discounting that the farmers are already selling a significant volume locally.
Correct.
We're just saying, is there opportunity for us to get more farmers on board who could take advantage of this 0.6? I mean, we're talking about book buying season, we're talking about Christmas coming up and so on.
Of course.
And so that is the plan. So what we've done, we've taken that information, we've recognized that there's potential for it. We've started what is called a crop directory. The crop directory basically looks at who are the producers currently, who's producing those crops, what quantities, and what time of year.
That's right.
So we've placed this into a sheet that says John Doe in such and such a location. He grows in January, he grows in April, he grows in December.
Open field or in greenhouse.
Whatever conditions under which they were growing it.
Okay.
Now that we are almost nearing completion of gathering that data, what we're going to do is to meet with those persons and find out whether there is potential for them to grow more than what they're currently doing.
Great.
If the short answer is no, then we could see if there are other persons who are interested in coming on board. After we've determined that, we're also going to meet with the buyers to say, guys, look, this is what currently obtained. We have these 400 people producing this crop. Based on what you have, we notice that you're purchasing, you know, £250,000 pounds of it. Is there an opportunity for you to purchase more from local farmers? If the answer is yes, then we say, okay, we have a list of farmers who are interested. Can we get initially a gentleman's agreement or some kind of agreement and some kind of arrangement that this person is going to agree to a certain quantity? Because this is not about bananas. I keep saying not about bananas because we do not have this thing of planting infinite quantities. If you say yes, we have a little opportunity between April and May. Can you target that period? Then we now as Extension can work back with that farmer to try and produce that crop to be available for harvest during that time. But what we've also done, like I said earlier on, is there was a 2009 greenhouse survey, I think that you're part of.
Yes, I did that.
We've taken the results of that greenhouse survey and we've gone back. We're in the process of assessing the greenhouses to see where they're at, whether they're covered, whether they're in production, the irrigation systems, because we have also recognized in order for us to effectively meet those demands, we need to be able to use those structures. So the short of it is, we are currently looking at the structures. Are they in production? Who's managing them? And we're also going to seek to bring those farmers together into some kind of an association of some sort, because we as Extension cannot tell persons what to produce. But if you could bring them together and they can agree, if they could come together and agree, then we have done something that is useful. So the hope is somewhere by the end of September, we could bring those folks together, get them to agree that they will abide by their own rules of engagement, that the opportunity is there. So in this not new, but in this revised import substitution, there are lots of crops that are available to be grown. But the ones we mentioned are those that we are importing in significant quantities, and we really want to take steps to try and give our farmers an opportunity initially to take a small share of what is being imported. Like I said, we cannot force persons to buy local, we cannot force the local buyers to buy from us, but if we could help them see the opportunity of generating livelihoods, because this is about keeping money in people's pockets. My good friend Elvick at Labro, he said persons only get into something if it is making money.
Of course, but that's the whole idea.
And the thing is, the money is there to be made. These crops are being imported. That import represents an opportunity for a person who could produce it locally to produce it. An important thing, the scheduling of the production. We as Extension over the years, we've struggled literally to get persons to adhere to scheduling. But you know why I said, who's Kemuel to tell anybody, any farmer,
What to do.
what to do with his land? However, if the markets could say to the farmer, Chief, we could only buy so much from you at such and such a time, you are now forced to abide by a schedule. The unfortunate thing is, because of what we have as quote-unquote open market, they still take their chances.
Of course
so
they
they know John Doe is going to buy 10,000 kilograms between the months of December to March.
But they plant more.
But they plant and they take the chances elsewhere.
Yeah.
But that chance that you're taking is compromising another producer who is supposed to be supplying around that time. I'm calling all our producers. This is agricultural trade. And if we continue to be helter-skelter with the way we produce without giving due regard to markets and scheduling based on what is required, we're going to mess up the trade for ourselves, meaning that we will be investing money and we will not see the returns. When that continues for a while, we will get frustrated, and then we will come out of production and we become all losers. It's
The
a lose-lose
information,
situation.
Kemuel, we have the information. Okay, for example, statistics have the information. I mean, you know, I have been getting that information, passing it on to you all. But that I believe there is still a bottleneck, and that's where it has to be free up. You need to give information to the farmer. You cannot be getting information from him all the time.
That's right.
And you're not giving
That's
him
right.
back information
That's right.
for decision
That's
making.
right. That's right.
Because he needs to take decisions too, and maybe that's where we are making the problem.
Yes,
right? We are creating the problem there.
That is definitely a bottleneck, and we've had experiences where even in the face of that kind of information, which is something, again, I keep saying to our clientele and of our officers, there has to be that exchange and that measure of trust in the information that is being exchanged. Because here is a situation where you say to a person, bro, could you consider delaying the production of these melons till next 2 weeks? Because if you plant it now, you're going to have a problem. We're already expecting 200,000 kilograms.
Yes.
And they tell you, yes, but you go to the field and it's planted there. But the other thing that happens sometimes too is when we give information based on what we have on record, we show up at the market and 10 other guys show up because we didn't have any records of that.
Yes.
And so one of the things that we're really trying hard to do is to get the field officers to work with the farmers so that there is a free flow of information. But even more importantly, Sid, I'm saying to farmers, and I'm hoping that they're listening to us, the Ministry of Agriculture does not buy or sell anything.
Exactly.
And even
don't
if
blame
we-
the ministry.
Even if we have the
sell.
information and the buyer, it does not get to the buyer on time, or the buyer does not give due consideration to it,
You can't blame the ministry.
the buyer is just going to shrug his shoulder and say, well, boss, I have already.
Yeah,
He'll not tell you whether it's imports or he will not tell you
Whatever
whether
it
it's
is.
local purchases. He'll just say, we're not buying this week.
Yeah.
And that line, no farmer wants to hear it from your potential
Exactly.
buyer.
The other thing too, why is it that there's a farmer, say for example, in the Schwaza area where he can grow, say carrots for that matter, says that he can do carrots. Why he wants to do cabbage, carrots, tomatoes? What I'm saying to you, I mean, can we not educate him and have him? It's true you keep saying that, you know, we can't tell him what to do. But okay, I believe predominantly he can grow carrots there. Let him do carrots well. The agronomic practices for carrots, you educate him in that field and he can do carrots alone.
It's about risk. We had a project where that was part of the story. So we scheduled the crops with the farmers. There was beans, tomatoes, melons, and the beans were not a high income earner,
Right.
but the beans represented a crop that would restore
Nutrients.
soil nitrogen and so on.
Right.
And we had fights literally where farmers say, why is beans you're giving to me and you're giving Sydney
Yes,
tomatoes at this time of year?
Yeah.
At this time of year, that particular time. Because the time that he was getting the beans represented the time when he figured out that he could make a lot more money in tomatoes or melons.
Yeah.
And we just, so they would plant the beans, but they would still go ahead
And
and
then
plant
plant the rest of
the
the
other
soil.
crop that, and they were taking a chance. Here you are as a technician
boy,
saying,
that's the problem.
you know, you could do really well by staying on that particular crop, but the challenge for us is the willingness of the producer to take his chances.
Simple. You cannot take the cow to the well. You can,
You can
take
cow
it,
to
but you
a-
can't
make it
drink, and that's a problem.
And I'm saying, yeah. And so for me, what it is, we need to have the conversation. What is really important, Sid, is that if the producer recognizes that you're not producing this thing for your own consumption, you are targeting a market.
Right.
And you need to work with that market to ensure what it is that you're offering to them.
Well said, sir. That's the end, you know.
That's it.
Kemuel, thank you for being here. And
be continued.
I know that it's challenging for you.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
But I
yes,
think
yes.
I mean, we need, the dynamics has changed.
Yes.
The marketing dynamics have changed, and the
dramatically.
production scheduling has changed also
Yes.
with climate change, etc.,
All of
etc.
that.
So all of that inclusive. So I wish you well.
Thank
You've been
you very
watching
much.
Agriculture on the Move, and people, agriculture is the business like any other business. Don't wake up in the morning and they say, okay, I want to plant cabbage, and you don't know where you're going to sell it. Please contact your extension officer.
Yeah,
Agriculture again is our business, and eat fresh. St. Lucia's the best. I'm Phillip Sydney. Goodbye, and enjoy yourself.
Bye.
Yes, comrade. All the best, man.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.